Guys, you know my love of Magic Spoon. Each serving has 0 grams of sugar, 14 grams of protein, 4 net carbs, and only 140 calories in the entire bowl. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. Perfect if you're trying to lean up for summer. Magic Spoon's bringing back a limited edition birthday cake flavor in a special 5-pack. This flavor sold out last year, so order now because it's going to sell out again. There's a lot of amazing flavors to choose from. You got blueberry, cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, cinnamon, and of course, I got to tell you, my favorite is frosted. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product. It is backed by a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. For my Canadian friends, Magic Spoon is now shipping to Canada. Click on the link to get the limited edition birthday cake 5-pack today or build your own box. From their best-selling flavors, remember, use the promo code Chael for $5 off before they sell out. A video just got posted. It was over at MMA Weekly, and the video was titled, "Old Guy Walks into a Boxing Gym and Regrets It." So you will see this a number of times, and this used to be called a Dojo Storm. Now, allow me to go back just on the vernacular. A Dojo Storm, and this was in the early days of trying to identify which art and discipline was the best. So the Gracies were very well known. It was called a Gracie Challenge. But you could walk in with no preparation whatsoever. You might have prepared somewhere else, but you can walk in off the street without even being a member of the gym and paying the dues, and you could challenge a Gracie. Now, there was something to that over time where the Gracies got tired of having to fight, and so they put a policy in there where, okay, you got to go through one of my students first, but if you get through my student, then you can take me on, and nobody ever got through the student. I find that strange. I think that I understand where this came from, and if you are the owner of a gym and your entire livelihood is connected to people not only knowing that your system is effective in exchange for their time and money to come in and train from you, but by having to prove it, I think that I understand it on some level. I just don't like it. I don't want to see a street fight. I don't want to see somebody come in and challenge my coach. I would be the other guy. You come to challenge my coach, fine, but you got to get through me first. That part of it I halfway understand, but I don't understand why we're fighting in a gym anyway, where we're supposed to be practicing and learning how to fight, but set my prudeness to this aside. Set it aside so I can just tell you the story. This is a real thing. Can you guys relate to that? Is there ever a day where you're so confident that your skills are better than that being taught in the combat sports studio that you're going to walk in, get off your biscuit and risk it? I mean, think about what could potentially happen there. It's not a whole lot different than going out and think I'm going to get in a street fight today. Have you ever done that? And if you might raise your hand and say, I've been in a street fight. No, that's not what I asked. Did you ever leave your house and think I'm going to go do this today? Because if you had, you're a real jerk, and you might want to check your character and make sure that you're not operating within society, but it's usually a very spontaneous thing. You weren't looking for trouble. These guys are looking for a fight. I don't know that I can fully understand that. And they also go in, and this is the part where I have to give them a little bit of credit, even this bizarre world that I'm telling the story within. They're walking into a gym. It could be 50-1. They're showing up all by themselves. So there's a little bit of bravery, and nobody seems, at least within the Gracie system, and I've never heard this, and I've talked to Hoyce about this plenty of times. I've talked to Henzo about this. I asked Hickson about this on this very show. Hickson told me this is a very real thing. But Hickson went further to say there was always an honor. Nobody showed up with a gun or a knife. Hickson said any bad guy can do that. This was a fight against good guys under actual rules where if somebody taps out, the fight is done. You don't pick up a rock and come back after it. So it's one of these things where there was this code of ethics that never had to be spoken. It's just the way that it was. And Hickson was telling me about guys who would do this to him. And this was when he was in Brazil. This is before the Gracie started the UFC, and this was a televised event. And we were starting to get the answers to some of these questions without actually having to go out and test them. There was other gyms within Brazil that were looking to draw from the community. And just like the old Carney days where pro wrestling started, they would test it right there. Prove to the students and steal other students and try to steal their business. So Hickson would have people show up to the gym, want to fight him, and Rickson would get a phone call. He's got to go fight the guy. He doesn't know anything about it. He's not prepared, right? Rickson never complained about these training camps we're all hearing about, and these weigh-ins that we're hearing about, and all these injuries we're hearing about. Rickson just had to go do it, and it wasn't he just would do it. He had to do it. This was family honor. It was a cultural issue from with where he lived. And between Rickson coming on here telling a story, Renzo privately talking to me, Royce privately talking to me, they never had anybody go off script. It was one-on-one. And whatever the result was, you lived with the results. The Gracies never lost in one of those. But whatever the result was the result. And I saw this guy go into this boxing gym, challenge this boxing coach. And it's a very strange thing to me because there are things that you can do within a gym. I was at an MMA show in Portland. Some guy shows up to the show, and Randy Couture was living in Portland at the time. The UFC was a much smaller thing. Even the local regional shows didn't sell out. MMA was just different, but Randy was still Randy. And Randy went down to one of these things to support it, and some guy gets into it with Randy's wife. So Randy decides that he's going to address this situation, but he gets into the ring. He gets into the ring like after the show or during a break where he thought if he could get the guy to come into the ring, it was all fair game. And you know what? I agree with Randy. There are certain rules that would happen if you get into that ring that would be fair game, at least in comparison to not. And so there's something about being in the gyms like this older guy. They call him an old guy. I'm calling him an old guy because the headline called him an old guy, walks into a boxing gym. Please don't picture like a senior citizen. He was an older guy, walks into the gym, challenged the coach. There's nobody there. It's just the two of them. And he challenges him to a fight. Coach said, well, put your gloves on and get into the ring. So he gets in there, he films the whole thing. Coach does what I believe to be like a cellular phone. And he gives the guy the business. But as he's giving him the business, he's explaining to the guy, I'm doing this to you, and I'm doing this to you here. Not just because you asked for it and you deserve it, but because I want to teach you a lesson. The only thing that you've done right here, as I see it, is you came into my gym. Because if you would have done this on the streets, particularly with the skills or lack thereof that I'm seeing you possess, who knows what would have happened to you. So I'm going to finish out this round. This isn't going to be nice and it's not going to be pleasant, but it's going to be necessary that you leave here having learned some level of civil manners. I get it. I get what the coach did. And I also think that Randy's old idea that if it's within a ring, I think that it's allowed. I think that maybe there was a lesson there. I think that maybe it was appropriate. I will tell you a guy that tried to do this in Portland. A guy named JT Taylor came into Team Quest to fight Matt Lindland. Now, this is on YouTube and you can go look it up. But JT was a local tough guy in a small town in Oregon. So within that small town, he probably was the toughest. I don't know. It's a small town. I couldn't relate to it, but he might have been. So he's supposed to come to the bigger city and fight Matt Lindland, who's one of the tougher guys at a actual MMA gym that's actually producing fighters that are actually going, right? I mean, it's just a different deal. JT thinks better of it, doesn't show up for the fight. And it's very funny. I'll share my perspective. The day that I heard JT was going to fight Lindland, I was in a car in California driving to a WEC event. I was going to fight Alex Stiebling. I'm driving to an event when I hear this is going to happen. I say to Matt Horwitz, who's in the car with me, I go, Matt, that fight will never happen. And Matt goes, what do you mean? We just heard it was announced. And I said, JT's going to say he fell off a ladder. I literally said that. JT canceled the fight, and guess why, guys? Said he fell off a ladder. I swear to goodness, I called this one. The second I heard about it with Matt Horwitz as my witness, I'm on the phone, and I turned to Matt. I said, JT won't do it. He's going to say he fell off a ladder. Of all the excuses I could possibly think of, but I think I had heard like JT was painting houses or something. Like something happened where I had ladder in mind, and I turned to her. I said, he's not going to do the fight. He's going to say he fell off a ladder. So he does. So Matt walks out anyway. Matt walks out at the event anyway. People are there to see that fight. It was a big deal in a little area. Sold out, small venue, but still it's very real for the people that are involved. And so Matt walks out anyway. And when it's JT's turn to walk out, Matt plays the Kenny Rogers song, coward of the county. So when the audience that wasn't already apprised of this realizes there will be no fight, there will be no main event because there is no JT, Matt takes the microphone and explains to the audience what has happened and that JT has pulled out, and Matt proceeds to call him coward, but, and I don't know between coward or the next thing I'm going to, I don't know which one of these two really got under JT's skin, but JT Taylor was known as the Desert Dog. And so Matt was walking around the ring calling him the Desert Chicken, doing the bark, 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 bark. Like he was doing this to him, and the whole thing's being filmed. It was on a very small broadcast, but all the same, it existed. JT finds out about it. He's got to answer for it, right? And you know how that goes. Like your reality, no matter how upside down and backwards, or you're a legit tough, but it's in a really small area. It doesn't matter. If that's your identity, you will do whatever it takes to cling that identity. And that identity got called into question in the form of pork, 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 pork. I can still picture Matt walking around the ring doing the rooster. Okay. JT's going to make this right. He gets a couple of buddies in a car. They drive 2.5 hours. They're going to come to Team Quest. They're going to do a Dojo Storm, and JT's going to fight Matt Lindland. Now, this is not going to go well, but he can at least have his dignity back. That's a meaningfully different fight, considering JT knows all about it, is prepared for it, and is going to catch Matt off guard. It's a meaningfully different fight, but in some realm, he can get this little piece of dignity back. This isn't going to go well. It's a 2.5 hour drive here, and now he's going to have to go 2.5 hours back, except this time holding ice all over his body. It's one of these things, but JT did it. People think this was staged, and I'll tell you why. When JT stormed the gym, all of this is caught on video and exists today for YouTube. So the naysayers are quickly going to say, why would Matt possibly have a camera going? How could you possibly document this? Well, I'll tell you how. Matt was making a technique video. Matt was literally mic'd up, and he literally had a camera on him. He was filming a technique video when JT storms the gym with his hands wrapped. Oh, by the way, a coach and a corner man who's holding a bucket. So, I mean, imagine the level of ridiculousness as these guys drive 2.5 hours over. One of us got his hands taped in the car, and another one's got a spit bucket, and the third one's going to be yelling out instruction in between rounds, of which don't exist because there's no timekeeper and no referee. I mean, right, the level of silliness, and it all gets caught on tape. So when this goes down, one caveat to the story, and if you'd stayed with me, then you're going to appreciate this. When this goes down, the guys at Team Quest, who, by the way, aren't like tough guys, we don't have the same mentality that apparently they had in this part of Oregon, where we just got to get this back. Somebody said something about us. Well, they're not. They're working the desk. They're bringing drinks and they're cleaning the bathroom, but it's an office staff. These guys weren't fighters, the guys that were at the gym at this time, but there's about 3 of them, and they go about, 150 a piece, and they are going to back their guy, but they aren't, the pros weren't, we weren't there. So when this whole thing happens, JT comes in, and JT's not the biggest guy. He's perfectly in shape, but I would put him at about 180 pounds would be a guess. Matt was perfectly in shape at time, but I would put Matt about 196 pounds. There's one big guy, though, that JT brought with him. There's one big son of a bitch. About 300 pounds, looks like a football player, great big trench coat, leather jacket. So when all of this breaks off, the guys at the gym, without any kind of discussion, that realize what's going on, the 3 office guys, and again, these aren't fighters, they're not tough guys, but there's 3 of them, and they surround this guy. They realize Matt can deal with whatever these 2 knuckleheads and JT are doing, but we're going to have to sustain this guy. Turned out, the big guy in the jacket was a potential student who had popped in to get a tour of the gym and potentially sign up. He has no idea this is going on. He has no idea who the Desert Chicken is. He has no idea why his hands are wrapped. He has no idea who the guy with the spit bucket and the other guy are, and he has no idea that Matt Lindland is about to commit a homicide. All he knows is he's now surrounded by three members of the office staff that are putting the stink eye on him. And I will tell you this, go to YouTube and watch it. I've pretty much ruined it. Matt Lindland does not leave his spot. He does not fight JT. He sends him out the door. JT informs him, I am not a coward. And Matt says, well, yes, you most certainly are. We had an agreement of when to fight. There's now 3 of you at an unagreed time, which is a equally as cowardly move. And Matt's right. Not showing up to a fight, that's a coward move. I don't make the definition of coward. I'm not walking around calling people a coward, but I have read the definition, and not showing up to a fight makes you a coward. Showing up with 3 people to a fight, which is essentially a jumping at an unagreed time, illegally, is just as cowardly. So Matt tells him that. Essentially, Matt tells him that and sends him on his way. The big guy doesn't leave. So the guys at Team Quest say, hey, beat it. Your guys left, you go too. That's when the big guy reveals, I don't know what's going on, man. I've heard about you guys and I wanted to be a member, and now they're trying to run it back. You can't run that back, right? I never met the big guy in the leather jacket. I've never seen him with my own. He never came back to the gym. And quite frankly, I can't blame him.